And we are starting off with massive developments coming in from Moscow. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has delivered a furious rejection of the Ukraine peace talks, branding the recent cross-border strikes as acts of terrorism and demanding, quoting, "Who negotiates with those who bet on terror?" quote unquote. In fact, the Russian leader delivered his ultimatum with chilling finality, ruling out any comprehensive ceasefire with Ukraine. Very significant. In fact, Putin warned that Kyiv would exploit any fighting pause to rapidly rearm and strengthen its military position. Ukraine's desperate push for an unconditional 30-day truce hit a brick wall during Monday's Istanbul peace negotiations. Moscow's response was swift and brutal. Russia demands Ukraine completely withdraw from 4 eastern and southern regions that Moscow claims as its own territory, something Ukraine is not ready to abide by. In fact, Putin exploded over weekend attacks on Russian border infrastructure, including a bridge strike that derailed a train and killed 7 people. The Russian president accused Ukraine of orchestrating these quote-unquote terrorist operations, specifically to thwart the negotiation process. In fact, American concerns are also mounting rapidly. The U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine issued an urgent warning that Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb, the devastating drone strikes against Russia's strategic bomber fleet, risked triggering unpredictable and potentially catastrophic responses from Moscow. Remember, Donald Trump had said that he was not informed by Kyiv regarding the deep strikes. And that's a chilling statement coming in from the Russian president. In the wake of Ukraine's attacks, the Russian President Vladimir Putin delivering that statement, and it's in fact a clear message from Russia as far as the ceasefire is concerned, delivering a furious rejection of the Ukraine peace talks and also branding the recent strikes by Ukraine as acts of terrorism.
They are asking for a summit meeting. But how can such meetings be held in these conditions? What is there to talk about? How can we negotiate with those who rely on terror?
In fact, now Ukraine has released footage from its official Twitter handle showing how Ukraine executed its daring drone strikes inside Russia. The footage, Ukrainian Defense Ministry, in fact, showing how the drones zoomed in on the targets, how the drones pinpointed the weak points, the most vulnerable points on the Russian bombers, and destroyed them. Ukraine's operation, in fact, targeted 4 key air bases and claims to have destroyed around 40 heavy bombers by smuggling trucks of first-person view drones deep inside Russia. Among the destroyed planes were rare Russian A-50 spy planes, damaged in Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb. So that's the latest as far as the Russia-Ukraine situation is concerned. Of course, there have been fresh escalations on the battlefield as well. And now in the latest, the Russian president is giving out a firm rejection of the Ukraine peace talks. That's a significant takeaway coming at a very crucial time with speculation mounting regarding Russia's revenge campaign, and now Ukraine also releasing that piece of footage like we just showed you, showing how Ukraine executed its drone strikes inside Russia, followed by that second attack that was undertaken by Ukraine as well. First, they were starved, then they were shot, and now they are being barred. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is spiraling, and now even food aid is a deadly gamble. At least 3 mass shootings have taken place near food distribution sites in Gaza in 72 hours. And this is not speculation. Israel has admitted it opened fire near one such site on Tuesday, killing at least 27 people. And now the Israeli army has warned that roads leading to aid hubs are combat zones. So that basically could mean if you are a starving Palestinian civilian trying to reach food, you risk being shot at. And today, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, which is a US-run and Israeli-backed aid initiative, has shut its food sites. Why? Because it can no longer ensure civilian safety. They say they are reorganizing. But you see, in doing that, they have provided no details of any timeline, no guarantees. The foundation is now pleading with the Israel army to mark safe corridors more clearly, All this to prevent what had happened thrice already this week. Civilians being gunned down as they lined up for food. UN officials are calling this a war crime. And they are not mincing words. UN Rights Chief has said, I'm quoting here, deadly attacks on civilians trying to access food are unconscionable. They are a grave breach of international law. In fact, last Sunday, more than 30 Palestinians were killed at another aid hub. While Israel says so-called suspects moved towards their soldiers, it has not clarified who exactly those suspects were.
We only wanted to feed our children. They're the ones who need food, not us. We're used to going without, like during Ramadan. That's why we rushed to the aid distribution site. They tempted people with promises of help, but in the end, they opened fire. Why? What did we do to deserve this?
Israel says Hamas is stealing aid, but humanitarian groups have seen no widespread evidence of diversion. And now the US and Israel's alternative aid plan is under fire. The GHF's new leader, Johnny Moore, a Trump ally, is already under fire himself. He called media reports of the shootings lies spread by terrorists, quote unquote. And yet, even their own spokesperson admitted civilians were killed outside safe corridors. And as the aid group pauses operations, civilians are left with no choice. Go back, risk being shot, or stay and starve.
As you can see, all that's left here are body parts. Israeli forces tell people to move to so-called safe zones, but the reality is there are no safe places.
So as the world watches and the UN debates, food has already become the front line in Gaza. Shifting focus, Israel has launched fresh airstrikes on southern Syria, saying it had targeted weapons belonging to the Syrian authorities. This is after 2 projectiles reportedly were fired from Syria. According to the Syrian news agency, the Israeli shelling targeted several sites, including the Yarmouk basin in the west of Daraa province. A Britain-based war monitor reported the aerial strikes caused violent explosions. Took place in southern Syria's town of Quneitra and Daraa region. The Israeli military also said in a statement 2 projectiles were fired. 2 projectiles were identified crossing from Syria into Israeli territory, which fell in open areas. The bombardment hit the farmland in these provinces. However, no casualties or damages were reported so far. Earlier, the Israeli defense minister had said he holds Syria's president directly responsible for the twin projectile attacks, which reportedly came days after an Israeli strike killed a civilian near a village in western Syria. A statement from the IDF read, I'm quoting, "The Syrian regime is responsible for what is happening in Syria and will continue to bear the consequences as long as hostile activity continues from its territory." Katz had also warned that a response would follow soon. However, denying the charge for the attack, Syria's Foreign Affairs Ministry had said the country has never been and will never be a threat to anyone in the region. Further, the Syrian Foreign Ministry condemned the Israeli strikes as a blatant violation of Syrian sovereignty, one which resulted in significant human and material losses, warning they risk destabilizing an already volatile region. Recently, Syria and Israel have engaged in direct talks to ease the tensions, one which marked a significant development in relations between the two sides, locked in conflict for decades. However, in the recent weeks, territories in both countries have witnessed rising tensions, including reported Israeli military incursions into nearby villages, and with attacks and counterattacks mounting every day. It only signals there is a long way to de-escalation. Let's now shift our focus to Pakistan. It has been close to a month and there are clear enough signals that the Pakistan leadership has been unable to recover from the deep strikes by India. Strikes as deep as 300 kilometers, exposing the defense of the country. Its leaders, in fact, are up against self-goals and embarrassments nationally as well as internationally. Pakistan's diplomatic tour appears to be falling on its face. Let's just start off with Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. In a media briefing earlier today, he claimed that Pakistan had approached the United States and they had assured Pakistan that none of its F-16 fighter jets were used or lost during the 4-day standoff with India. Listen in.
फिर वो ये झूठ निकला कि F-16 जो कह रहे कि हमारा गिरा दिया उन्होंने, हमने हमला किया उसके साथ और वो साबित हुआ जब हमने अप्रोच किया जो रेलेवेंट अथॉरिटीज अमेरिका में उन्होंने कंफर्म किया 24 घंटे के बाद कि कोई F-16 ना उड़ा है पाकिस्तान से ना गिरा है तो हमारी जो
But here's the reality check. India never even accused Pakistan of deploying F-16s in that skirmish. So what exactly was Pakistan even trying to disprove here? Why seek America's endorsement to debunk a claim that was never made? Remember, Ishaq Dar is the same leader who, during a speech before the Pakistan Senate on the India-Pakistan clashes, ended up referring to a fake news report, praising the Pakistan Air Force. Members in the Senate cheered Dar's fake claim, which was then fact-checked by the Pakistan media itself. And that's not all. At the United Nations, former Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto found himself cornered after accusing India of politicizing a terror attack to demonize Muslims. He was caught off guard when a veteran journalist pointed out that Indian briefings during the conflict were led by Muslim military officers. The reference was crystal clear. Colonel Sophia Qureshi, who was one of the officers leading India's communications during Operation Sindoor, Bhutto had no comeback. He just said, quoting, "You are absolutely right." And while Bhutto was tying himself up in knots very clearly, contradictions within Pakistan's own establishment were only piling up. At the same UN event, Bhutto claimed that Pakistan had locked onto 20 Indian jets with its radar. But Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif had just recently claimed in an interview that it was only 10 jets. So a country unable to tally radar locks is now trying to flex its military credibility. This is the same defense minister who had said in an earlier interview that Pakistan had shot down Indian jets, but when asked for proof, his response was, "It's all over social media." From chasing imaginary victories to fumbling over facts on live microphones, Pakistan is not just losing its credibility, it's embarrassing itself, one press briefing and statement at a time. Switching gears, crisis and Pakistan are synonymous with each other. The country is running out of water and time. Dams are drying up, crops are withering, and the economy is gasping for survival. As the Indus runs low, a nation of over 240 million stares at disaster. Take a look.
Pakistan twin crises are converging with terrifying speed. A spiraling economic collapse and a catastrophic water shortage. The Indus River, lifeblood of the nation, is shrinking fast. Mangla and Tarbela, Pakistan's main reservoirs, are barely half full, with water levels plunging toward a dead level just as the critical Kharif crop season begins. Rice, cotton and sugarcane, the pillars of Pakistan's agriculture and foreign exchange, now face ruin, threatening food security and export earnings at a moment when the country can least afford another shock. Punjab, the breadbasket of Pakistan, is suffering the most, with water availability down over 10% from last year and the summer heat compounding the crisis. With the declining commodity prices and soaring input costs, farmers' purchasing power has significantly weakened, as reflected in the sharp decline in tractor sales in the past 2 years. This time, the mood is grim ahead of the upcoming Eid al-Adha holiday.
I have been visiting this market for the last 2-3 days. Today, I have been here since noon. The prices are almost double compared to last year. The animal price, which was 100,000 rupees last year, is now 200,000. They are not lowering these prices.
It is 50% costlier than last year. He, trader, demanded 115,000 rupees. I offered him 100,000, but he did not give it to me. Even if they weigh it as 3,000 rupees per kilogram of meat, it will not justify the cost. They are charging exorbitant prices.
The Indus River System Authority warns that without urgent relief, early Kharif sowing will be devastated, and the monsoon's arrival may be too late for many farmers. Economists warn that any drop in output spells disaster for foreign reserves already battered by debt and IMF bailouts. Even Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif admits the humiliation of begging for help can no longer continue.
China is the most time-tested friend of Pakistan. Saudi Arabia is one of the most reliable, trustworthy friend of Pakistan. And so are others. Turkey, Qatar, UAE. They expect us now to engage them in trade, in commerce, innovation, and they no more expect that we go there with a begging bowl.
The World Bank has flagged rising poverty and food insecurity, with millions facing hunger as the government struggles to pay its bills and allies tighten their grip on financial aid. Right now, the clouds of uncertainty looms large over Pakistan.